Hello everyone and thank you for joining me. This is Ciara from Ciara T Designs, and today I have a video on the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel to share with you. So let's jump right in. So to start, I do like to cut down my cardstock, and I am a full believer in using what you have. So I have a trimmer that's not quite the right size for Slimline cards, but it works. I have a full-size standard piece of cardstock, which is 8.5 by 11 inches, and I cut off 4 inches, giving me a 7 by 8.5 inch piece of cardstock, and then I'm going to score it at 3.5. This is my preferred size for slimline cards. There are a few different measurements you can go with. This is just kind of my standard one, but that's kind of how I go with it. And when I do something super bright and colorful, I really like to add a black mat. So my black mat is cut to 1/8 of an inch smaller than my card base is, which will be the 3.5 by 8.5. And then my panel that I'm going to ink blend on will be 1/8 of an inch smaller than my black mat. So here you can see I also have a score buddy, which is a bit small for the slimline card, but I make it work. And when I use a really heavyweight cardstock, I believe this is a 110-pound cardstock, I like to score it on both sides. I just find that breaks up the fibers better, and it's less likely to crack even though I'm using a fairly heavy cardstock. And I tend to lean towards a really heavy cardstock simply because I find that it holds up better with the more that I add on it. So not that there's a ton of layers to this specific card, but that's just what I like to use for my bases. And here you can see I'll double check that my measurements are right because I didn't measure them very well, and then I just trim off a little bit if I need to, and if I don't, I just keep going. So here I'm going to use some blending brushes, and I have 4 colors of oxide ink. I have cracked pistachio, wilted violet, picked raspberry, and then I'm going to come in at the end with black soot. Now bear with me as I make this background. It's going to look like a hot mess, and honestly, as I was making this card, I wasn't sure if I liked it. I love the end product, and I think that this stamp set that I'm going to use is just stunning with a lot of amazing sentiments. But I had this idea in my head that I really wanted to create like the northern lights, and then have the power lines or the telephone poles in front of these northern lights. That's kind of where I was going with this. And I'm not sure if I really kind of got there, because the kind of reference image that I used had this really large chunk of color in the like left side corner there, and in Mother Nature it looked stunning. On my card it looks a bit odd, so bear with me, it will come together, and sometimes you just have to give your card a little bit of time to kind of see how it's gonna go before you give up on it. But I'll be honest, there are a few times in this card that I wasn't sure if I should have just done like a sunset in the background or something a little less ambitious maybe, but I think that in the end it turned out pretty great, and I'd love to know what you guys think, if you have any opinions on how this card kind of turned out. So I'm just bringing in the picked raspberry in the top corner there, and I am going to kind of blend back and forth between the colors to kind of create a blend. I'm not really aiming for a great blend between them because that's not kind of the point of this card. It's more to have kind of some stark colors. But I promise it's okay that you think my card looks like a hot mess, because I would 100% agree with you at this stage of the game. But it will come together, even though it took a minute. But it will come together in the end, I think. So I blend back and forth a couple of colors, and you'll see that I occasionally will tap off my blending brush on my glass mat. That's just to get any ink that's blended between the two colors off of it before I put it back in my ink. So then I'm going to bring in my black soot, Distress Oxide Ink, and I'm kind of just going to ink around the edges, which kind of just is supposed to signify that it's like a sky, like a kind of a nighttime sky. I don't know if it quite gets that across, and I maybe could have used dark blue instead of the black, but this is the way I went, and this is what I was thinking while I was doing this, so I don't know. I think it's a lot of fun to try new techniques and to kind of just see and push yourself. I blend a fair amount, so I mean, I could have absolutely done a sunset or that kind of a thing. If you guys saw my last video on this channel, you would have seen that I did like a night sky, a blue night sky with trees in front of it, and it was quite pretty. So I was trying to kind of push myself out of my comfort zone and do something a little bit different. So I also brought in my Distress inks in the exact same colors. I have the cracked pistachio, picked raspberry, wilted violet, and black soot. And I'm just kind of going over the colors to make them more vibrant. If you've seen the Northern Lights in person, I have not. It's a bucket list thing for me. But all of the pictures I've ever seen of them, they've been quite vibrant. And I thought that the oxides weren't quite vibrant enough for what I was going for. The oxides, because they are a pigment and dye ink fusion, they kind of give you a chalky effect, whereas the Distress inks are a dye. That's what they are. Like that's their blend. So they give you a more vibrant color. So I thought if I brought those in, and you'll see it drastically here in the black soot. Like you can see how it's kind of a chalky black. It's not very defined, and then once I bring in the Distress ink black, you can see that it's quite a bit more vibrant. And this is what I mean, like maybe I should have brought in a blue and then it wouldn't kind of been so stark, but this is where I went, and I think it looked pretty good in the end. I don't know. So I'm splashing on some Perfect Pearls mixed up in a little Misti bottle, or little mister bottle. And I'm also going to splash on some white paint. This is just some out of my stash. And you can take it as stars, you can take it as snow, whatever kind of makes this look pretty interesting. I find that if a background is a little bit of a struggle for me, I tend to add a little bit of splashes on it. It kind of adds a bit of a whimsical feel, a little bit of magic, and I think that sometimes in a background that can be really stunning. And with the Northern Lights, I think a little magic or a little whimsy is just quite a great addition. I think could be kind of stunning. So I brought a little tree out of a lawn fawn set I have in my stash, and I'm just kind of stamping out some trees to kind of give perspective as to the telephone poles being closer to you than the trees. So it kind of gives you like a bit of a perspective in where everything is laid out. And then I've brought in the Waffle Flower Power Lines stamp set, and I'm going to stamp out multiple images in this. And I had to speed this way up because it took me a few minutes to line everything up. So I would stamp out like one telephone pole, and then I'd bring in the lines, and I'd hold it up to make sure it was actually sitting with the telephone pole, and then I'd stamp it down. And this is just some Momentum Tuxedo black ink, and I just have like the mini cube. And I'm just using that, and then I'd bring in the next telephone pole and kind of line that up, and then see that it actually works, and then stamp it down. So it was a little bit of a process. But I think that this is a really great stamp set, and I think that the sentiments are really, really awesome. I'll show you what I do with my sentiment here when we get closer to the end. I had to play with it a little bit because my background is so dark, and I didn't want to add too many layers to this. I do want to mail this out to a really good friend of mine, and I think that she'd really appreciate it. So I kind of tried to keep the layers down so that it would be easier to mail. But yeah, I mean, you could absolutely add some layers to this. I just kind of was going for more of a one layer look. And then it was a lot of steps. And I think that the sentiment in this is really, really great, especially after the year we've just had. The sentiment reads, "You are not alone." And I think with how 2020 went, I think maybe some of us need that reminder sometimes that no matter what, you're not alone. And I'm so thankful to be a part of this crafty community because I actually know that. I have a lot of amazing friends in this community, and I think we're really blessed to have such a community that's supportive of one another. So I think the sentiments in this set are just really great for what's going on kind of right now. And then here you can see that I'm even going to hang it off the side of my Misti. I do this all the time. If I can't get a stamp to fit in my Misti, but I want to stamp it a few times, I'll just hang the cardstock off the edge and stamp on it. I've never had any problems with that. I do it with the inside of card bases every once in a while because they don't quite fit in this size of Misti. And I've had no problems. So if you ever are having that, because the Slimline card fits in the Misti, but barely. So in this size of Misti specifically. So here you can see that I'm just inking up the sentiment, and I did use my Memento Tuxedo Black for the sentiment, but it ended up fading a bit further into the background than I wanted. So when you see the final picture, I've gone back in with just a black ink pen and written over it. So it's the exact same sentiment, but it's just a little bit brighter, and you'll see that here when I show you the final image. So I brought in my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive, and I'm just going to glue down my panel to my black mat and then my black mat to my card base. And that's pretty much the Slimline card I have for you guys this week, or this video, this month. I would love to know what you guys think of it. Let me know what you think of my Northern Lights. Do you think that they came out okay? Do you think that they're a bit different? I mean, I think they're stunning. I think that it's one of those things where you kind of have to try and see what you can come up with. And I mean, I think that they turned out pretty great. I think that my friend will get a smile out of this card, and that's really my kind of goal with card making, is just to bring smiles to people's faces with a lot of fun cards. So I would love to know what you guys think. So if you could leave me a like, leave me a comment on this video, and please consider subscribing. There is a lot of amazingly talented creators in this group right here. So please consider subscribing. And thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye for now.